All right, we are live here. Today we have Jason with us, Jason Jolliffe. We are talking about resilience and self mastery. So,
Yay.
yes, I want to make sure. Oh, I've got to record. I forgot to record last time. All right. So, we have Jason Jolliffe with us, and we're going to talk about self mastery and resilience. I gravitated to Jason so much. We actually
Mm.
started off getting to know each other from, he was actually one of my first clients, like, yeah,
You
for
didn't tell me
coaching.
that.
Yeah,
What? Whoa.
yeah. Well, we were in the same course, right?
Yes.
And so we were kind of interacting in on the Facebook group, and I had put a call out to when I was first coaching, to practice coaching,
Mhm.
right? And so Jason had volunteered, and I think we did 3 sessions together. So that's how we got to know each other. And I
Wow.
just gravitate to Jason like so much afterwards because just watching him grow and watching his story, just he's so authentic in sharing his story, and it's
Aw.
just so empowering. And you've just got such a beautiful spirit and just amazing energy with you. So I'm just so grateful to have you here.
Aw.
We
Thank you
are
so much,
actually,
Vanessa. Wow.
yeah. So this is the first time we're doing this live on
Mhm.
Facebook and on Instagram. So for those of you who are joining us live, hi, Joanne. If you are joining us on the replay, let us know that you're watching us on the replay. Would love to connect with you afterwards. And yeah, so if you have any questions at all throughout our
Mhm.
discussion, it's just really a happy conversation between
We're just hanging out.
Jason
We're
and
being cool.
yes, right. And so, yeah, if you have any questions or if there's any insights or anything that you want to share with us, anything that resonates with you, please share in the comments, and we'll be sure to give you a little shout out. All right. So let's start off with like asking you, Jason,
Yes.
like, what
Yes.
does self mastery mean to you?
Self-mastery. I'm a big focuser on mental health when it comes
Yeah.
to being faced with addiction, being faced with some of the challenges of sobriety and overcoming adversity, self mastery has a different, I don't want to say impact, but has a different meaning than I had before I started the
Mhm.
recovery journey. Like before, in the heat of my addiction, my self mastery was just trying not to eat the full bag of chips. Like that was my version of self
Mm,
mastery,
yeah.
trying
Yeah.
not to drink the whole six pack. Like that level of trying to control myself and master my inhibitions. My goal setting was super low. I was happy at the smallest tiny achievement. But when I focus now on self mastery today, it's quite a different. I don't want to say like flash in the pan, but my goal setting is much larger and it
Mhm.
encompasses much more. I demand more of myself. I have such a higher standard for myself. And self mastery is and I would believe it to being a delicate balance of some of the challenges we face every day,
Yeah.
as well as some of the rewards that I face every day.
Right. Yeah. I think it's so important to really be able to check in with yourself to see where you're at. Right. And I truly believe that self mastery is all about the little things. It's
Yeah.
all about the little things. Like we could go and set goals, huge goals for ourselves, but you've got to first check in with what's real for you, right? Like where you're at
Mhm.
and what is it that you can feel that you can truly accomplish and achieve, right? Or else you're kind of setting yourself up for failure and
Right.
kind of like and I totally know how that feels because this is what I would used to do. I would set like crazy goals and then use the goals to beat myself up, right? So really looking at the little things, right? Um,
Mhm.
and being able to kind of start there, right? So can you go into more about what your story is, in terms of like how did you even get to this space now
To where I am, like
to where you are? Yeah.
I started with, have you ever heard of the book, like The 1 Minute Manager? It sounds silly. It's like a 20-page story. Like it's not even that big of a story by Spencer Johnson, and it's more of a parable. And it talks
Okay.
about the 1 minute manager is somebody who gives 1 minute praises and 1 minute coachings and then 1 minute discussions. Like you celebrate the small, tiny things. And Spencer Johnson and Ken Blanchard, that's another name.
Okay.
These ones, they wrote a book, not just a book, like that's the smallest version of their teachings, but they did a much larger, I want to call it like class, where it's called situational leadership. And I saved up a bunch of money to go to a situational leadership course, and I couldn't get it. Like I signed up for it and I wasn't able to get it. And instead I took a Dale Carnegie course on
Mm,
public speaking. And with that money, I was like, okay, I'm going to take this. And this was just before I hit the lowest part of my addiction, where I thought I'm going to take this course and it's going to change my life and it's going to change everything around. And it
mm,
didn't. I took the course. It's a very valuable course, but I
mhm.
don't think it would have mattered what course I took. I don't think I would have changed. It would not have motivated me to want to change my life. It did add skills to me. It did add to my
Mhm.
my toolkit, but I wasn't in a position to. It wasn't the kick in the pants that I needed. Is a
Yeah.
nice way to say it.
Yeah.
And this was the summer before I went to treatment, before I admitted I had a problem with alcohol. And
Mhm.
I ended up taking the course. And while it was filled with good knowledge, next to next to that course was like downtown Calgary. I'm in Calgary, Alberta. So downtown Calgary is, it's a super fun place. And next to that course location, they rented a building somewhere. And next to that building was a, it's not a treatment center, but it's like a walk-in place for
Yeah.
addicts. And I would see them on my way to the course, and I could see them struggling, and and it made it visual. It made it heartbreaking. And I was like, that
Right.
could be me. That was, when you can see it, it's different. When you can smell it, it's different. It anchors it to an
Mhm.
experience. And getting that small taste of it, I was like, okay, I need to change. I need to shift. I need something more than what I'm facing with. Because it's, if
Mhm.
I don't change, things are going to get worse. Things are going to get out of control. Not that
Right.
this course motivated me to do it, but just being close to it in proximity, seeing the, if you play the tape to the end and you start seeing other people at that result,
Yes.
okay, that can be scary. That can be a scary thought.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I did eventually go to treatment, and I did end up going to a 9 week program. It was in house, and, or inpatient treatment, they call it, where you go off the grid for weeks. And it was also in Calgary, but we ended up, we had these funny like requirements, and you had to do all these things. Like you had to do chores every morning. You had to go to a morning meeting, an afternoon meeting, an
Mhm.
evening meeting after dinner. And there's all these requirements. And if you didn't hit all your meetings, you were asked not to come back. And it was really kind of a
Right.
scary moment for me. And one of the places we had to go to meetings was the exact place that was next to the course place,
Right.
where I was no longer walking by it. I now had to walk in it. I had to
Mhm.
walk through it. And just like that experience of seeing it on the outside and being afraid, now I'm going to
Mhm.
see it, confront it. And not that it's a scary place, but I made it scary in my head. I don't know if you can relate to
Yes.
it, where I built it up to
Totally.
being like, oh, I can
Yes.
see those people struggling, and that's not me. I'm fine. I'm okay. I'm going to make it. I'm strong. I can truck through it. When inside I was an empty shell and horror, like underneath the facade, underneath the
Mhm.
mask. I don't know
Mhm.
if you can relate to that, where now I'm in a position where I went to that place continuously, like habitually, to get my
Yes.
meetings done. And then I could contribute and I can help. That was a very eye opening experience. That was a very like I've never shared that, but that's something that I hold on to even to this day, years later. I remember that feeling. I remember the smell.
Mm, yeah. Yeah.
That kind of thing you can't see and experience and not have it change you.
Totally. I
That's how I got
totally,
here.
yeah. Thank you so much for opening your heart up and sharing this. How, like, and I think for all of you who are watching, just think about something that you've been wanting to change, or you've wanted to change so bad that you like. I want to point out in Jason, in your story, you had that point where you just slowed down and you truly made a decision for yourself,
Mhm.
right? You made the decision to change. I think that is the first thing always. And I always talk about this in my teachings, is like the power that we have is choice. It's first it's our power of choice, and then the other power is our imagination, right? And like you had
Right.
mentioned, right? Like
You
your
make it the worst.
brain had gone to imagining the worst case scenario and was like, okay, no, I don't want to be that, right? But at the same time, we can use our imagination to create something amazing for us as well, and to see
Mhm.
what is possible, right? But the thing is, like, as long as we have a fear brain, our brain is going to go into, let's just create the worst case scenario,
Yeah.
right? And so, but that's where our fear brain does work for us, right? Like, it
Mhm.
does help us show, like, it does show us kind of all the possibilities. And then we get to make a decision as to how we want to follow through on it, how we
Right.
want to respond to it, right? So you could totally give in to it, ignore it, push it away,
Mhm.
hide, hide, and just cover it up and just pretend that you're not empty inside, even though you feel empty inside, right? Or
Yeah.
you can totally say, okay, I hear you, I see you, I yeah, like it's like I can smell it, it's in my body, it's like in my memory now. Now I want to make this, I have a response. I can choose in how I want to respond to this, and then move forward, right? And make that decision to just keep deciding for yourself. So kudos to you, because I that is truly what self-mastery is. It is
Mhm.
continually deciding for yourself every single day what is going to serve you best, and what is coming from love, right?
Right. Am I
Yeah.
living my life out of fear? Am I living my life out of abundance? Or am
Yes.
I living my life out of curiosity? Or,
Hmm.
there's always the code words underneath those surface based feelings. So if I'm feeling anxious,
Yeah.
the code word for anxiousness is fear. And what part of me is feeling anxious? What part of me is, this kind of dips into what we're talking about later about like how do you maintain that self mastery where
Hmm.
I can focus more on my knee jerk responses. And that will only get me
Yes.
so far if I'm living in a knee jerk
Yes.
world. If I've
Right.
created a world around me that's nothing but fear based, if I look around
Yes.
and I see the world through eyes, not unlike those rose colored goggles, you know what I mean? Where if all
Hmm.
I ever put on is those spectacles, then I'm only ever going to see
Yes.
that. That'll be just my experience. If I'm panning for gold for anxiety, then I'm going to find it.
Totally. Yeah. And you had actually brought up, like, at the beginning,
Mm.
even before you kind of you made the decision to address your addiction, you like your I guess your fear response was, oh, okay, let's try to better myself. Let's take this Dale
Right.
Carnegie course, right? And see if that helps, right? And I thought that that was so interesting, because so many of us do that, right? We take courses in hopes to help us feel better and feel more motivated and feel more
Right.
inspired. But at the end of the day, what truly works is going deep, going within, right? And
Going
that's
beyond that
exactly
surface.
yeah,
Like if
beyond
you
that
if you
surface,
scratch
right?
my surface, don't be surprised you get more surface like underneath it. So it's if and that can be a challenge to when you first identify it, that there is a problem, especially when it comes to addiction. Like when I
Mhm.
identify that a habit has become a problem, and
Mhm.
my instinct is to keep scratching the surface to find out more, eventually
Yeah.
I'm going to start asking those questions that are so deep that I don't have the capacity
Yeah.
to get to that solution. I don't have the capacity to find what's right. If I don't know
Yeah.
what's right and I only know what's wrong, this is where reaching out for help can be a huge thing. Admitting, tapping out, like phoning a
Yes.
friend, reaching out to my friend
Yeah.
Vanessa, asking how she's doing. Like
Yes.
there's more to it than just staying inside my head. And that's what I had done and grown accustomed to
Totally.
for
Yeah.
quite some time. And I filled that. I tried to fill that void through other things like courses,
Yes.
buying an iPad, buying a pair of shoes. I don't know. Like, and these
Yeah.
things are not fulfilling. I've come
No.
to discover the only thing that fills spirit is spirit.
Yes. Yes. Right. Which addresses why your spirit is so lively, and you've totally allowed it to come through. Right. Um, yeah, it hits so hard home for me because I used alcohol as well to fill myself up, right? And I think for me, my breaking point was when I remember so clearly Halloween night.
Mm.
Um, I got dressed up as Dark Angel. And so
Wow.
I was just like, okay, this is my alter ego is coming out. I don't even
Right.
know if I didn't consciously decide that that was it, but that night I just completely went nuts. Like just my
Mm.
friends at the end of the night were
We're
just
like,
like, okay, we're
whoa.
just gonna leave her at the party. Like she's just out of hand. And nobody talked to me after. There was one friend, she actually reached out to me and
Wow.
said, hey, what is going on with you? Like, this is Vanessa we've never seen before. Right.
Mm.
And that was where it was like, okay, I did such a great job hiding it for so long that,
Right.
now that it's out, that there's
You
something
can't take that
I'm
back.
not addressing, right? It's like my friends are all kind of like, whoa, 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 what is going on? That was where it really kind of like blank slate, like it just kind of like wiped
Those
me
are
out.
eye-opening moments where you're like, what happened? And then they're like, yeah, did you see the Instagram photos? Like the
Yeah.
car's in the tree now. And you okay? And you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. There's moments of, I would call it shame. I would call it
Mhm.
regret, where
Mhm.
Tony Robbins will call it like burning the boats, where you need to
Mhm.
burn the boats before you storm the beach, because then
Yeah.
otherwise you're going to have that hesitancy along the way. You're not truly going to want to take over the beach. There's
Yes.
parts of me that are reserved. And
Yes.
in some of the content that I create, I'll talk about I'm really, really good. And I don't know if you can relate to this, Vanessa, where
Mhm.
if I take like imagine a flashlight and I turn the flashlight on and I'm shining it
Yeah.
over here. I'm
Yes.
really good at drawing attention to what's in the light,
Yes.
but I don't. Do you see where I'm going? Where
Yes.
on the other side, where there is no light, not that it's the darkness or
No.
there's things, it's more of a, by drawing attention to only to the light, I'm not giving recognition to those parts of my life
Totally.
that need work. There's, in recovery, we'll call it shadow work.
Mhm.
It sounds silly, but there's still work I need to do in the shadows. Because if I were
Yes.
to right now, like let's say I had 10 years of just living with my alter ego in your
Mhm.
reference, and I just didn't give it light and I just kept it in the back and I didn't give it voice. And if you're
Yeah.
watching, you can like I'm almost hiding behind it.
Yes.
And now if I take the light and I shine it on it right away, it's going to be a scary moment. Like that's going to give me heart
Yeah.
palpitations. That's going to be, I'm getting older now.
Yeah.
I can't do that anymore. The younger version of me, maybe, but I'm not 19 anymore. I've got,
Mhm.
I've got a bigger calling for my life other than what I think I should be or whatever my ego tells me I should be. And not trapping my
Mhm.
ego, but identifying it. We talked earlier about identifying that part of ourselves, and that can be huge. And I'm not saying
Mhm.
that the shadow is bad. I'm not saying that these are things that need to be expunged. But what I am saying is it doesn't need to be light and dark, and there can be areas that are gray, but it doesn't need to be gray permanently. It doesn't need to be shadow
Yeah.
forever. We can
No.
bring that forward and saying, my friend sat me down and was like, Jason, we need to talk about Saturday night because something you tell me what's going on, what's happening. And there's times where I've been in
Right.
the same conversation and I swept it under the rug, shut
Yes.
them out, and I cut them off. It
Yeah.
didn't matter if it was my mom,
Like, what are you
my
talking
best
about?
friend, coworkers, and it wouldn't have mattered because I myself wasn't ready. I wasn't in a position.
Yeah.
I wasn't in recovery. We'll call it open, willing, and ready.
Mm.
If I'm not in that position, I'm not going to be open to receiving it.
Yes.
And that's huge. That's coming to that event
Mm.
crisis point. And maybe for you, that's what it was. And maybe that side conversation offline, privately, meant more
Mhm.
to you than in the moment. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that that's what it is, but I'm more open to conversations privately than I am in public. Meanwhile, the
Mhm.
spectacle, the that Saturday night, you could have talked to me and I wouldn't have cared.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know if you can relate, but there's parts of me, if it's making decisions, then it's gonna probably not end up well.
Yeah. No, I can totally relate. I think that's the thing. It's like it's having I think what it is having that recognition
Mhm.
that someone else can see that shadow that
Right.
is giving that acknowledgement to say, hey, I
Yeah.
see you, I hear you. Let's bring it to light, right? Whereas if I was to do it on my own, I wouldn't do that, right? Because I've been so good at pushing it to one
Right.
side, right? So, like, having that acknowledgement is so key, right? And this is what we do in coaching as well. The first thing you want to do is acknowledge where you're at, right?
Yeah.
And just like you had your three steps, it's basically, yeah, like you want to be able to see, like, there's nothing wrong with opening yourself up to it all, right? Like it's really about like this is truly who like what it means to be human, right? So, and I love that you're sharing this. You're so passionate about this, and we didn't
Mhm.
even dive into this yet. Like, how are you sharing this gift of yours? Like, in what ways are you sharing your own self mastery journey right
I've
now?
started, well, earlier, before, if you're joining us on Instagram, we were chatting about podcasts and videos and where we started. And it's been a journey and a half. I started originally in treatment. Like I was in the program. I was in a 9-week program. I mentioned that earlier, where it sounds silly, but they're like there was rules I mentioned, like chore rules and in bed by midnight kind of rules. But
Yeah.
then there was like a no internet rule, like no cell phone rule.
Mm-hmm.
And except from like 5 p.m. until like 11 p.m. or something, I can't remember. So between that window of small sliver of time, I did have my phone, but there was no Wi-Fi. That's that kind of a place. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So with that, I would get my phone after not having it for like 20 hours. And then I would like, okay, I need to share my experience. I need to do something. And what I'm about to say sounds weird, but I didn't tell anybody I was going to treatment. I didn't tell any of my friends I was going to rehab.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't tell any of my friends that I suffered from alcoholism and I had a problem with alcohol or other drugs,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't own up to it. I told all my friends I was going on vacation, and I was hoping they would forget after 2 weeks because everyone thinks of vacation as 2 weeks. I'm like, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
People won't forget. 9 weeks, they don't even notice. No, no. The opposite happened. People were asking
Yeah.
questions. They're like, where's Jason? I can't, where has he been? It's been more than 2 weeks. Where did he go? And with nobody being told anything,
Right.
it created the opposite effect of what I was hoping for. And what I think about 2 or 3 weeks in the treatment, I ended up saying, I need to start documenting the process.
Mm.
I need to start, and I wasn't creating like a journal where it's like day 45. Today I went to a meeting. Like I didn't document that. It was more of like, here's the snippet that carried with me today. Here's the phrase that resonated with me the most. And I didn't um, post that on Facebook for means of drawing attention to it. I didn't want my friends to see this cryptic blog scrolling wall of text that didn't tell them anything. I didn't want that for my friends who were already curious about what I was going through, but I also wasn't in a position to bring that into their life. And I wasn't in a position to share that with them yet. So I started a Facebook page, and this is my first page. I haven't really talked about it, but I called it Make Someone's Day. Something silly, something fun. And
Yes.
every day I would post, hey, and it wasn't like a pro recovery statement, but it was more of a statement, like a blurb, like the cheesy quotes we talked about earlier, like the
Yes.
cheesy text. That's, and I had posting like, you know, rather than fear making decisions for me, what if I made decisions based out of gratitude? Send. And then that would go up on the text. And then the next day I would have another one, and then another one. And then pretty soon, by the time I finished treatment in 9 weeks, those cheesy quotes went from 0 followers up to 4,000 followers. And there was no aim. There was no advertising. There was just posting those kinds of things. And they're just cheesy quotes. I got out of treatment. I completed my program. I went back to work. And I felt like I'd become a whole new person. And when I got introduced back into the workforce, once I got back into like hugging my friends and seeing them and smiling and dancing and giving high fives, I was back in work and somebody was giving me a hug. And they're like, Jason, I missed you so much. It's so good to see you. Then they leaned in and they whispered, don't worry. Your secret is safe with me. And that crushed me, like that feeling of like, wait a minute, hold on, let's back this up. Nobody knew. And I was like, okay, hold on. No, there were 3 people that knew. It was this person, and then pretty soon my fear is creeping in. I'm now sound enough to identify like these emotions I'm feeling are now driven out of anxiety, and I'm starting to be filled now with anger, frustration, resentment. These are 3 things that don't have place in my life.
Right.
I need to change that. And I didn't know how to do it. And I was like, okay, I no longer know who knows what. I no longer know. I no longer feel in control. I no longer feel like I'm controlling my message. I don't feel who else knows. Like I started questioning like which of those 3 close people broke the silence. And I didn't like that. And I didn't want that. So I decided to do something completely different. And then I was like, I'm just going to share everything. I'm going to take my phone. I'm going to go live. I'm going to do Instagram posts. I'm going to do the thing. One day in the future, I'm going to do a blog and maybe a podcast. Years later, here we are. And now I'm like, I need to share everything. How I'm feeling, what I'm doing, what I've done, my wins, my losses. And then in doing that, it creates more of a people. And it was really interesting, the kind of responses I would get. But it's cathartic. It's healthy. It's happy. It's fulfilling for me. It rejuvenates me. It recharges me. Not like just the sharing of your message, but like the impact it can give and the responses you get from people. I'm sure you know, like from the work you do, the praises you get in response. But that's
really think
that's
like
how it started.
yeah. No, I love that. Like I you know, as soon as you were kind of building up to like, okay, well, the 3 friends know, and I'm wondering where they're coming from, and fear was like high gear, like on kind of on its roll. This is where like I love it, because the thing that you resist the most, this is where you got to use that to work through it, right? And so you used it. You said, hey, okay, fine, I'm just gonna let it all out. I'm just
Let's
gonna
do it.
show everyone, right? And oh my gosh, I can only imagine what kind of release you had to experience, because I believe that our truth truly like sets you free. Being able to speak so openly and share so much of you, there's fear, and you can still do it anyways, because every single time you do it, you just feel the freedom, right? And
Right.
so, yeah, so it's like, why not continue doing that? But it's being able to master your mind and emotions, being able to truly understand that you have the power in how you respond to it, right? So I think, oh, that's just, oh, so beautiful. I think it's available to all of us. It really is. Like, it's available. This really being able to be yourself, step out into being your authentic self without anything to hide, is just so releasing.
It's like invigorating.
It's invigorating, right? I have a client he loves using liberating. It's very liberating, right? Like
Mhm.
being able to just speak your truth and share, right? I just want to acknowledge we've got Casio 82. You've been hanging out with us for a bit. Let us know if you have any questions. We have Arm Richard 82. Hi on Instagram here. Um, yeah, let us know if you have any questions, or if you resonate with any of the stuff we've been sharing. Um, yeah, let us know. Like, we're here. Like,
We're hanging
I
out.
just
We're having a
we're
chat.
hanging out. I just love that we get to just be so open and share. And I really
Mhm.
truly believe the power, that sharing is empowering, right? And like you said, you have touched so many lives by sharing, being you, really, just sharing all of you,
Right.
and being able to talk about the things that are kind of like hush hushed a lot of the times. And because the thing is, we want to talk about those things, right? We
Yeah.
want to have a space to be able to um, share and connect, right? And I'm just, you are such a gift to this world, Jason, because you have
Ah,
provided that space to
thanks,
do so.
Vanessa.
So let let's just kind of wrap up here. Let us know,
Okay.
like, what is one thing you would share with our audience today, that for them to take away? What is like the one key
Mhm.
thing that you would recommend, in maintaining self mastery? And because it is really a
Yeah.
practice, right? It's not just a destination that you have to get to. It is a practice. So, what is one kind of tip that you would give to our audience?
One thing I do that really helps me out is I've talked about like segregating and mapping, like identifying. And so
Yes.
for me, one thing I've done is I've broken things, my content out into three essential parts. There's the pre-recovery stage where it's a nice way of saying like I'm still in denial. The active recovery where I'm currently in, and then the relapse prevention.
Mm,
And so those are the three pillars that I focus my content around. It either falls in one of those three buckets. And one
okay.
of the things we help with the content is there's different stressors that are involved and there's different challenges. And depending on which bucket it's going to be under, I can
Hmm.
help, like, my method of strategy of how I'm going to approach that problem is different depending on what state I'm in. And it's fluid,
Hmm.
it's dynamic, it can shift. Like if I'm
Yeah.
doing something new, like cooking a foreign dish that I'm not sure about, that's the early stages. But if I'm feel like I'm comfortable in it, I'm a little more resilient and I'm more tolerable to my risk assessment. Or if I feel like I'm doing something on a live podcast that's also on Instagram and Facebook and Zoom, and I'm comfortable in it, and something goes wrong, I can have a little more dynamic of
Yes.
approach, and I can feel more free to make mistakes, and I'm more
Yeah.
liberal with my assumptions. So when I think of resilience, when I think of those three buckets, and I think of okay, what's my comfort level, and I can stop and identify if remember those surface words we talked about, and those the code word underneath, where
Hmm.
if I'm feeling hungry, angry, lonely, or tired on the surface level,
Mm.
and I'm about to make a decision, we can see where I'm
Yes.
going with this, where there's like the code word
Yes.
underneath, where if I'm about to like respond to something and I'm about to be like, You ABC 456. I can stop and think, hold on, wait a minute, Jason, remember, are you feeling hungry right now? No. Okay, am I feeling angry right now? Well, yes. Okay, what's the code word for anger? Well, it's fear. Okay, well, what part of me is feeling fear?
Yeah.
Fearful. Am I feeling hungry? Okay, what part of me is feeling hungry? Well, it's easy to go and identify what part of me is feeling hungry, but is there something I could have done to help mitigate that hunger before this happened? Is there
Mm.
some responsibility that I can partake in? So is it
Mhm.
hungry, angry, and then lonely? Am I on Instagram at 3:30 in the morning debating whether or not I should buy those bunny slippers? Am I feeling lonely right now at 3:30 in the morning that I need bunny slippers? Am I like, and then tired? Am I feeling tired right now? I'm about to commit to something that I'm not 100% committed on. And is it something I
Right.
should commit to? And if I am feeling tired, if I can have the self awareness to identify those
Yeah.
emotions, to map out those key terms before I make the decision, those HALT, halt. If I can
Mhm.
halt and stop and then say, whoa, what part of me is making this decision before I jump in, before I overcommit? I don't know if you can relate. I'm an overcommitter. I always want
Yes.
110%. I want to give 110%.
Yes.
And people, my audience, your audience, they'll take it if you'll give it. But
Yeah.
there's nothing for me to give if I'm draining myself 110% of the time. I need to recharge for me too. And maybe that means saying no.
Yes.
Maybe that means taking a step back, admitting I
Yes.
need help, taking,
Yes.
just like we're talking here, right? This
Yes.
is so much fun, Vanessa. Thank you for having me.
It is so great to have you. Thank you, Jason. I was sharing with Jason earlier on that I just love listening to him because he's got the most grounding, most calming voice. And I just enjoy your stories. And yeah, going back to HALT, like it's so like I love being able to have acronyms or analogies to connect with, just because my brain is all about creativity, right? Like being
Mhm.
able to visualize, and it works so well. And it's all about like allowing yourself to recognize when, yeah, when you're not aligned, and it's like, okay, pause. Like what I use is just pause, like
Right.
pause, do a self check-in, and that's exactly the similar to what you share, right? And so I love that. So thank you so much for sharing your brilliance
Thank you. Thank you.
and just your heart just filling up. Cassio says, yes, he does. I love listening to him. See? Yes, right?
Thank you, Cassio.
It's just so calming and keeps you in the presence, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's what we all want to experience, is always kind of being in the space of presence and enjoying the moment. And your voice just
Oh,
helps
thank
me
you,
enjoy the
Vanessa.
moment. So thank you so much, Jason. All
Stop.
right.
Stop.
Well, let's let everyone know how we can find you. So I have included the link
Mhm.
in the description here, and I'll also be sharing this self mastery talk on Instagram. I guess I'm going to share it on my page at Live Freely Vanessa. And if Jason, are
I can
you?
share it.
Yeah, you want to share it, so you can find it on
This will be
Jason's
fun.
page as well on Instagram. Otherwise, you can go to his website where he has all the links to his social media, his YouTube videos, his podcasts. So the link is uh, sobriety.live/now. Okay, so
Yes.
I've included that into the description. So thank you so much, Jason,
Thank
for
you,
joining
Vanessa.
us. Thank you for those of you who have joined us live for joining us. You are such a pleasure to chat with. Like I feel like we could keep going for forever, right? Like just such great conversationalists. And
This is
oh, so
awesome.
Cassio says he didn't know about the podcast. So now you know, right? Now you can listen to Jason on the go. You don't just have to yeah, like I find I love podcasts because it's just so much easier. But yes, thank you so much, Jason. And I'm sure this is not going to be the last that we see of you. For those of you who
Hopefully.
want to watch more of the self mastery talks, I do one every single week. Join us in the Self Mastery Collective for creators. If you go into Facebook and you just do a search for Self Mastery Collective, you will find our Facebook page there, and you can catch more of these fun self mastery talks. So thank you so much, Jason.
Yay. Thank you so much,
It's such a
Vanessa.
pleasure. All right. I will see everybody soon, and we'll catch each other in the comments as well.
All right. Take care,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.